Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into a genuinely fascinating piece of source material. It's a story called The Valentine. And what makes this narrative just so completely gripping is how it brilliantly, almost seamlessly contrasts the deep, tender warmth of romance with this absolutely devastating, inescapable supernatural horror. So we're going to break down exactly how this story builds its tension and, more importantly, what it's really trying to say about grief.
Okay, so let's start with our main character, Daniel Marsh. Daniel kept every single letter his wife, Clara, ever wrote him. He stored them all in this wooden box. It was actually a first anniversary gift from her, tied up with a ribbon that she had picked out herself. Now cut to 2 years and 11 months after she passed away. He still keeps this box right by his bed. It's literally a lifeline for him, for whenever that grief just gets way too heavy to handle in the middle of the night.
But then, what happens when a new letter arrives? I mean, think about it. It's Valentine's Day. Daniel is just sorting through the usual everyday junk mail on his doormat, right? And suddenly, he spots a cream envelope. Cream was Clara's absolute favorite color. And right there on the front, it's Clara's unmistakable handwriting. A brand new letter, arriving nearly 3 full years after her funeral.
Part 1. The Foundation of Romance.
Now, to really grasp the profound horror of this story, we first have to understand just how deep the love was between these two. The source text gives us this incredibly warm meet-cute over a mixed-up drink order at a local coffee shop, and it was just so perfect that it sparked a 3-hour conversation, leading to a beautiful wedding in Clara's parents' garden only 14 months later. You see, Clara had this wonderful little quirk, this habit of leaving handwritten notes. Her very first one read, "I think I'm going to like you very much." She just scribbled it on a napkin from that exact same coffee shop. Daniel loved it so much, he actually had the napkin framed. It hung right in their kitchen, basically watching him make his morning coffee every single day.
But then, of course, tragedy strikes. Clara suffered through an agonizing 11-month terminal illness that ultimately took her life. And in her final moments in that hospital room, with her eyes wide open, she looked at him and said, "I have so much more to tell you." Man, those words just haunted him. For 2 years and 11 months, they echoed in his head. And it's this exact, agonizingly unresolved grief that really anchors this whole explainer.
Part 2. The Impossible Valentine.
So let's jump back to year 3. Daniel is standing in his hallway, just staring at this cream envelope. Now, logic is screaming at him that this has to be a cruel joke, maybe a forgery, right? But his grief is way stronger than his logic. Because it looks exactly like her handwriting, he tears it open anyway. And the letter reads, "You haven't dusted the frame in quite a while, my love." It is directly referencing that framed coffee shop napkin on the kitchen wall. The writer can physically see it. And then the letter repeats those haunting final words. "I have so much more to tell you." It's an impossible, completely terrifying level of intimate knowledge that no random prankster could possibly have.
Part 3. The Escalating Dread.
Driven by this profound, blinding grief, Daniel actually tries to rationalize it. And the pacing of the horror here escalates so quickly. We kick things off with that first letter on Valentine's Day, but then the letters just keep coming. Always on Tuesdays, always with these mysterious, smeared postmarks, almost like they were rained on from somewhere far away. And because they contain Clara's very distinct voice and all these super intimate memories, well, he stops trying to explain them away. He actually starts hungering for them. By March, they're arriving once a week, accurately detailing things literally only she would know. I'm talking about things like him burning the Thursday pasta, or that specific time he woke her up at 7 a.m. with pastries at a hotel in Cornwall. By May, things shift. They escalate to physical requests. And by June, those cream envelopes are arriving every single day.
Let's zoom in on that May escalation for a second, because this is where the physical threat really starts to manifest. First, Claire's letter asks him to leave the bedroom window open, claiming she just misses being close to him. So Daniel does it. He tells himself it's just a comforting little fantasy. But then he wakes up to find a physical shape, an actual indentation pressed into the pillow right next to him. And finally, the clincher. He finds a single dark hair resting on the white cotton. And you know what he does? He actually takes this hair and places it in the wooden box with the letters, just completely refusing to admit to himself that he is terrified.
But, as you can imagine, the demands grow incredibly dark and chillingly unreasonable. By the time June rolls around, Clara's letters are straight up dictating new rules. Leave the front door completely unlocked. Keep the lights off in the hallway after 10 p.m. And, most terrifyingly of all, do not look at the bedroom mirror after midnight. And Daniel, he obeys all of them.
His grief is just so all-consuming at this point that he is willing to accept these deeply, deeply unsettling conditions if it just means feeling close to her again.
Now, just to prove to us that this isn't merely some psychological break happening inside Daniel's mind, the source material brings in his neighbor, Mrs. Osai. She pays him a visit out of genuine concern. See, she has noticed the curtains are always drawn. She's been hearing these heavy, pacing footsteps upstairs at hours when Daniel shouldn't even be awake. And then, here is the absolute clincher. She tells him she has seen a woman in a pale dress with dark hair standing perfectly still in Daniel's front garden, just staring at the house. Boom. The supernatural threat is objectively, physically real.
Part 4. The Climax. So, it's a dark evening in June. The house is completely unlit, strictly following the letter's rules. Daniel opens what is ultimately going to be the final piece of mail, and the story just hits its absolute peak of terror here. In this letter, Clara explains that being dead for 2 years and 11 months, well, it changes a thing. She insists the love is exactly the same, but everything else is different now. She says she just wants to be close again, and she ends the letter with this bone-chilling warning. Don't turn the light on. I'm already in the room.
The aftermath of this is swift and it is absolute. They did not find Daniel. The police searched the property for 11 days, and all they found was an open window, that wooden box stuffed full of cream envelopes, and a single dark hair left on the pillow. Daniel was just gone. There was no sign of a struggle, no explanation whatsoever.
But they did find one last thing resting on the kitchen table. That framed coffee shop napkin? It had been taken down and placed face up, acting as a paperweight for a single, brand new sheet of cream paper. And the note written on it, perfectly and just devastatingly, twists Clara's innocent first message from all those years ago. It simply read, "I think I'm going to like having you with me very much."
Part 5. What Love Becomes.
So what does this all mean? If we look beneath the mechanical jump scares of a ghost story, this narrative is actually a profoundly deep commentary on unresolved grief. Think about it. In life, love is this living, breathing thing that grows alongside us. It's comforting, it's rational, it's warm. But what happens when love is carried somewhere it doesn't belong? What happens when it's dragged into death? When it absolutely refuses to accept an ending, it doesn't just fade away. It morphs. It becomes this waiting, uncompromising force that is wildly possessive, fundamentally changed, and just utterly terrifying.
Which leaves us with a final, really lingering question to chew on. What does love become when it has literally nowhere left to go? It's such a haunting thought to end on, right? The source narrative wraps up by offering this very clear, chilling piece of advice for anyone out there dealing with loss. By all means, cherish their old letters. Read them when the grief gets too heavy. But if new letters start arriving on your doormat, for sure, keep your windows closed. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. I really hope it gave you a fascinating new perspective on how horror and romance can just perfectly intertwine.